Hello, and welcome back to part two of Building the Blend. In part two, we're going to take a look at some DIY tools that will help you start blending your lessons and your classroom. We left off last time with the what and the why of blended learning, and we finished with time to build. So let's get started. Anytime I work with teachers on blended learning, I want to take a look at some of the ideas that they have. And so we'll take some time to generate some ideas. And here's an example of some that they've come up with. Whether it's things for teacher-led stations, or ideas for online stations, or ideas for offline stations. It's a nice way to organize those things. And I'll often add a fourth, which are extension activities. Teachers are full of ideas. That's what you do. Moving from the idea to the blended learning lesson or blended learning classroom, that's where hopefully I can offer some assistance. Here's the number one thing that I've learned. One of the easiest ways to go about this is to go what's called horizontal with your lesson plan. A lot of us will have a list of things we want to accomplish during the time we have with the students. If we take those and write it horizontally as opposed to vertically, as you see in the example here, traditional example, a mini lesson, a read and annotate, some research, and a discussion. If we take those and write them or create them horizontally, then we have the stations for our blended learning experience. Here's an example. Each one of those activities that we saw before is now going to be its own station. One of those will be teacher-led. At least one will be online. Could be more. Usually one is offline. And in this case, there's one for differentiated practice to read aloud and annotate. And there are some examples of how you might differentiate for particular students. What we're talking about here are that tasks become stations, whether it's reading text or annotating or grammar work that you have to get in, or it's time with your teacher. Specifically on those stations where you're trying to engage students, it's helpful to build in some collaboration, some problem solving or critical thinking, some communication, and some creativity. That'll be the focus of these blended learning tools that we take a look at. I wanted to start you off with just a station rotation planning tool. And again, this came from Michelle Eaton's book, The Perfect Blend. You see it's set up for 4 stations, up to 4 groups. And then she's got a column for instructions to be printed or posted online. You can also put those right on the table. If you want to make them and they're not going to change too much and you want to laminate those things, put them on the table. They're there when the students arrive, if the students are moving. She's also got a column for modality, which tells us whether it's offline or online, and the type of interaction that's going to go on in each of those groups. Another place that I found a lot of stuff is on Twitter. This is an instructor from the Columbus, Indiana area. Give her a follow on Twitter. And I found a lot of interesting things here as well that she has shared. And even though I remade some of these and kind of adapted some of them, I wanted to make sure I gave her a shout out as well. So these blended stations are going to use a mix of individual, group, and teacher-led activities. You're going to see options or choice, which is always big. And let's dive into some of these. So the idea here is that you're building these stations with teacher-led, online, offline, and extension. One of the things that I keep hearing over and over again is that teachers need to create short videos introducing information they plan to present, or anytime you're going to have something that goes to all of your students. You no longer need to stand up and say it. You just need to make a video of it, put it in the appropriate spots, and then they can get to it and have some control over the pace with which they consume and process the information. That allows you, the teacher, to use your time with smaller groups of students on higher value instruction. So this is a plan with teacher-led, online, offline, and extensions. We'll go through each one of those, and then we'll show you an actual example of that. So for a teacher-led station, you're going to list your goals or objectives at the top. You're going to list the items to the left that the students will need. But specifically, this is the area where you can make students aware of what they'll need to bring, have started or have finished, or have questions about. For teacher-led stations, the focus is going to be on differentiation and engagement. You can differentiate here by adjusting the explanation, the model, the scaffolding, maybe even the word choice, or any other supports that you think they may need. It's also a great spot to focus on those 4 C's that we mentioned earlier: collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking. In that teacher-led station, differentiation and engagement is always the goal. For the online station, again, your objectives will be listed. You're going to give students the materials needed, the activity description, and I like to add a back channel, a place for students to ask questions when they're not with you, a chance for them to ask questions of each other or other students that may not even be in the classroom at the time as they work on things. It's also an opportunity to record yourself so that when you're not with them because you're with another small group, they have access to your expectations or what you want done in that section. It's also a great spot to add the video that connects to what it is they're going to be working on. But having that online place for students to post questions and answer questions and encourage them to answer each other's questions, I think is key to any online station. We'll show a specific example of that here in a minute. Again, online stations can benefit greatly from dialing into the 4 C's. Too often, an online station is relegated to individual work, and students will become bored. But the more we can build in critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity, the better their time is going to be there, and the more effective our time will be with the small group we're working with. I love edu protocols, and I think this would be a great spot to build in some edu protocols for an online station. The third station in this framework is an offline station. Again, objectives will be listed. Materials, activity description, again, we'll leave that back channel in there, so if they have questions, they can ask them. I like to think old school for this part. The old KWL chart. Maybe some physical text annotation. Those are good skills students still need. Maybe a good old close read. Maybe a first attempt at some writing or sketching, some planning or storyboarding, some sort of hands-on manipulatives, building something. Any of those can work here. Anything that's going to keep them engaged and moving towards the goal or the objective that you've set. Here's some examples of some of those things that you could use in an offline station. Things that they can do on paper or with a quick handout. The final one there is the extension activity. And again, we've got our objectives, our materials, our activity description, and our back channel. Great spot here for early finishers, tasks for them, Thinking 20% time, Genius Hour, passion projects, maybe some of the box or digital breakouts from breakoutedu.com, and any of the quiz games that are out there for creation on the student side. One of my favorites for extension activities is one called Zombie Nation. I've given you a link there to this teacher's site. These are built, they're out there. He actually has a gamified social studies classroom, but these are out there for points at any time, and they'll connect with any unit, just as an example. So click on Zombie Nation and give him a look. So what if we do one of these and we actually put in some stuff? So this one will be on some 1920s historical related things. And so you see up front, we've got the teacher-led station, specifically what's going to happen there. I'm a huge fan of Nearpod. The online station, which is going to do some primary and secondary source analysis in an Edpuzzle video. The offline station will be a KWL chart and the generation of some new driving questions. And then the extension will be from that Zombie Nation choice board that I just showed you to extend. So our teacher-led station, we've got our goals, station description. Students are shown exactly what they need to bring, what the teacher will provide, and we'll take care of that one-on-one or small group. The online station gives them links to the things they need, directions, materials, and a spot in a back channel to post questions or answer each other's questions. We've even got a goofy little GIF of me telling them what order to go in. I know it's goofy. Students seem to like it, so we'll put it in there. The offline station. This is the KWL chart. Tells them what to do, gives them the process. And again, once again, includes the back channel for questions. And finally, the extension activity. Tons of choices. I'd like them to do at least one, if not more than one. And again, this might be something that goes over multiple days, so they might have the opportunity to do several of these. They've still got their chance through the back channel to post questions and get things answered. So that's one way of looking at a framework. A second framework that I've come across recently is from the Modern Classroom Project. And I saw a presentation by Kareem Farah on Keep Indiana Learning, and I was intrigued. And the basic classroom project model there takes the blended instruction that we've been talking about, make sure we build in those self-paced structures, but then include some aspect of mastery-based grading each time they meet. Again, that would be a nice station to add in. Let's say you pulled out your extension activity station and you put in your mastery-based grading station. The idea here is that teacher creates all the direct instruction videos. I know that there are tons of videos out there, but in my experience, oftentimes they are too long to hold student attention, or they don't cover exactly what I need. And so I've always been better served by making my own. Students can access those anytime, anywhere. Teacher spends his or her time in a one-on-one or small groups. The key to this one is there's no live all-class lecture. If that situation exists, it goes in a video. The self-paced structure is listed in the middle column. I'm going to skip down to the bottom, because I think this is probably the most interesting thing that I found about the Modern Classroom Project, and that is that units of study are based on essentially 3 columns or 3 ideas: the must-do assignments, the should-do assignments, and the aspire-to-do assignments or lessons. And then the third column deals with the mastery-based grading, which requires students to revise, reassess, and reflect on their work, and that they use a mastery check during each class session to see what movement they've made. Here's an example from the Modern Classroom Project of kind of a game board situation. And you can see the examples of the must-dos, the should-dos, which are +1 bonus squares, the power-up or aspire to-dos, which are the +2 kind of star-shaped lessons, and then the mastery checks that are built in. So just another way of blending your learning and giving students some voice and choice, some control over path and pace. Finally, we'll finish this segment with a virtual station rotation template. Again, a resource from Catlin Tucker that has teacher-led stations. These would be virtual. So in this case, you're probably doing a Zoom or a Google Meet. You've got a spot for the names of the group members, what time, and the place for the link. Again, your objective is and directions. And then you've got their online station and offline station that they'll be working on when they're not in a discussion with you. So that'll be the end of part 2 of Building the Blend. We'll be back with part 3 shortly.